everybody. Welcome back to the French Hour. This is week 3, and we're still talking about the sweetness of the friend, being better than self-counsel, as it says in Proverbs. And I hope you enjoyed this week's blog post. The two things we really hit on this week were Daly talked about just what you bring to a relationship as you walk through it, what you bring to this space. And in my blog post, I talked about holding space for other people, making sure that other people are welcomed and feel supported. So, Daly, do you have any kind of kickoff thoughts about that topic?
I do, actually, because what I'd really like to spend our time talking about is how adorable your daughter is. That's what I want to talk about. But on that note, I also was thinking about how and it wasn't mentioned in your blog at all, and not necessarily in mine, but I like the picture of how your daughter brought them together, brought a new friend into the circle. And I love the idea of how sometimes that's how God orchestrates friendships. Mm-hmm. And that really spoke to me in a way. Maybe because I moved into our old neighborhood and, you were already there. You had been there, right. What, 3 or 4 years or something, or longer? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I moved in, and I remember having to be very, praying for community and praying that God would help me to find friends and make friends. And then it hit me one day that my friends are right here. Like, these are the people God brought me in here. And so what is it that I need to do really to get past myself? Because I'm the introvert, but it took me really leaning into God to say, I'm going to have to walk across the street, and I remember that. And so that hit me a different way yesterday afternoon when I was even just reading it and thinking, wow, yeah, that.
Too, I think sometimes we allow space, or a new person comes, and I think sometimes our perception is, I'm bringing them in, therefore the relationship is for me. And we don't always allow you bringing somebody in for the potential that their relationship with somebody else may be more purposeful, right? Like that's a lot to step back from and know, like, I was a part of that, but I see that their relationship is going to be more impactful in a different way. Or maybe not, it's not this way, they're better friends than I am, but maybe it's just that difference of these two, the similarities they share, or the same life experiences they share, is going to bind them. I think about my next door neighbor here, because obviously I'm just getting into this.
Right.
I lived here in the Seattle area for 6 months, and I have incredible neighbors, and it's 6 months of COVID. So I don't know anybody outside of my little box, but my next door neighbor, Liz, who's been incredible, keeps telling me, like, I have so many people I want to introduce you to. And it's from such a pure heart of, I want you to have friends, not I need to have this friendship for myself. I want to connect you to other people, to have other relationships. And I think that takes a lot of pure heart, yes. A lot of good intentions to say, let me connect you with people, knowing that those relationships may look different or may take away from the relationship I have in this circle.
Right. And it's weird because you step in and there was an established friendship. I mean, even with people who used to live in the neighborhood, that I had not met yet, those kinds of things. And it's a very different dynamic, and how people connect in different ways I do think it takes a level of maturity to realize that there's so much more going on than the comparative of whether you and I are the closest, like, are we close, and to not be threatened by that. And there's just all these layers, like God's doing things in so many different ways, and asking, how can God use somebody in my life and use them in other people's lives, and it not be High school.
I was going to say that the thing I wanted to interrupt you and say was, I have a middle school child. Why are we having this conversation as grown women?
Right.
And it's true. It has to be had because it happens every day. And it's not like, the French chart idea is like we were neighbors in our community and we're talking about my neighbors here. But the reality, it's your circle of friends, and whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your little group of friends you hang out with, whether it's your church group. Church groups can be some of the worst as far as I think it's really healthy to have good, solid relationships. And then I think it's good to have relationships outside of those core. Like it's good. You have to have both. You've got to have your people that know you deeply, call you out on your junk, support you in all your endeavors, know your deepest, darkest fears. And then you've got to have this next layer of like, and these are the people I'm pouring into, and these are the people that I live life with outside of the 1, 2, or 3 that are my tight knit core. And so it's funny because I was thinking just as you were talking, like, I need to have my 12-year-old listen to this because it doesn't change. Like you learn this and it's hard when you're 12 and your brain's not fully formed to be able to like, I can't be mature to step outside of the relationship and see what that's for. I can't do that at 12. But at 38, why is it so hard still? Like, why do we still have such a hard time with it? But it's so hard to say, I am thankful that they have a relationship and I am thankful to be a part of their relationship. Right. And I'm going to choose to trust that it's okay. Right.
And I think it does go down to what you hit in your post about that. We have this very deep innate need to know that we're not alone. Mm-hmm. And so it's really this not wanting to be alone or left out. And but to combat that, it's how do we see that from God's point of view of what is it that friendship is? Right. What is it that it does? Like, how is it that I interact with those friendships so that it is doing what God intended friendship to do? Mm-hmm. And I think that's that has to balance us off because we will tip over.
Friendship to do what it's intended to do, but then allowing Christ to do what he's intended to do. Right. I think once that identity is, we've talked about this, once that identity is established, then what I need or desire from that friendship looks very different than if I'm like, well, this friendship is making me feel not alone. And so if I can be fully identified in I am not alone because I have Christ, then I can handle this friendship. And when somebody says, I really love spending time with this other friend, or thank you for introducing me to this other friend, we've really connected, my heart can truly be joyful for it. Right. And not be in the back of my mind saying, great, wish you would have called me.
Right.
That's what happens. Yeah.
Right. And then, and also it's that rootedness, it's the finding the acceptance, with Christ and in Christ, and being on a part of that is accepting his plan and the way he does things and the way he brings about his desires for everybody. And so we do have an ability to be happy. It frees us truly to be happy for another human being. And another thing, Melissa, that I wanted to ask you about was this whole idea. You had used the phrase holding space and creating that space to allow others in. And in my blog, we talked a lot about stepping into spaces because friendships, all relationships are really autonomous spaces that we walk into. And so I would love to hear what your idea of what that means for you, holding space.
It's such a catchphrase right now, and I'm sure there's many different definitions of it. For me, it's been totally new because I did not have a language for this emotional health idea. So as emotional health has kind of exploded across our culture, and I've learned it with everybody because it was not, and through a lot of our relationship, because you learned it a lot as part of your everyday life throughout your life. And I did not understand it. And so when I think of holding space, I think of being very much fully present in what's happening in that moment. So if I'm holding space for somebody, I'm allowing them to be who God created them to be. I'm allowing them the emotions that they need to have, that they feel they need to have, not that I think they need to have. I'm allowing them to process in the way that they need to process. And I'm just making that available to them. I very much, parenting my kids was like, no, I'm the parent. This is what you should feel. I am the parent. This is the dialogue we're going to have. And so as I've learned this over the past, I would say 2 years that you and I have been talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
I had to change my whole language. When you're angry, I can allow you to be angry and quote unquote hold space for that anger and be available to you without allowing my own essence, who I am, who I'm created, what I feel to impact your feeling.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of, I've had this discussion with my niece, and I think we've talked about this before as well, about how when you see somebody struggling, in fact, I think we have talked about this with our kids, especially, that sometimes there's this place where you have to kind of expand. Like in my head, I literally picture whatever the grace bubble is that I think they need, to work things out.
Right.
I have to literally be like, they need more of that space. So how much of this space can I give to them that I can make it wider and bigger,
right,
for whatever it is. And I think when people can be that and work that out, we're sending them the message that God's grace is big enough to handle all that.
Yeah.
Like all of that, all the whatever we may have been told is not right or good. Like he can handle that. And so then when that transfers, like when you were saying about holding space and allowing people to come in, into these circles that naturally occur because of our situations in our lives. So that looks like a holding space for somebody who is new, who may have insecurities, who may have their own stuff they're working out, holding space like, you can be who you are because we're not here to measure you or judge you. So is that how you think it kind of transfers into, we're here to accept you. And as time goes on, hold the space where you need for working it out, as we're all kind of working it out together.
Right.
So that's what I was picturing and thinking, but I thought I really like that. Like I like that of consciously making that choice.
Yeah. And I'm glad we talked about that, because I do think a lot of these catchphrases in our culture are said so much and so often. And if we don't define them, sometimes it's just flowery words, right? Like, I'll hold space for you. I'm going to hold space. And it doesn't have an impact because there's no definition to what is actually happening in that moment. Where like, if I'm holding, like, I think of, if somebody loses someone they love or is going through a divorce or there's some trauma and you can't feel or you don't know what to do next.
Right.
I feel like the best thing I can do is quietly stand in the gap for them and say, I am praying for you the words that you don't know how to pray. I am holding space to allow your emotion to just be. And I'm going to continue to love and care about you, even though you're not present anymore in my space.
Right. Oh yeah. And I think even just the idea of, hi, I see you is such a powerful working of it's a testament that we even trust what God is doing, even in the darkness, because as humans, we want to fix it, but we're letting them have that ability to let God move and work. And the truth of the matter is God ends up doing so much more than we could ever do. Yeah. In the fixing, there's no
part of it, because we get to stand and watch on the sidelines and point out, say, did you see what God did there? Did you see how far you've come? Something that you say to me that is so encouraging. I think you just said it this morning in a conversation to me. I see how far you've come. by the way that you have responded to these things that we've talked about. And that's such an encouragement to me because you've been on my sideline for so long that you can see changes and get to be a part of God changing me just because of the relationship we share. And that's cool.
That's really cool. And I guess that's kind of the sweet part of it, is that there's that sweetness of like, there's an understanding and somebody is a witness to my story. They know that, like, when I say, oh no, this just happened, they already know the whole background of why that is like a big deal.
Right. Yes.
And that's important.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why God gives us friends, even in the holding space. You know, that's an important part of it. So I'm really glad that we did talk about that, because I do think it gets watered down. The meaning gets watered down because we assume that everybody else has the same definition of what holding space is, and we don't talk about it. And so I did want to just highlight that because I think it was such a great point. So I am really glad that we did bring that up. I think it is important. And for those of y'all who are watching and joining us for this week 3 conversation, I'm curious. We don't often talk about these things. We assume everybody means the same thing. And I would love to know your experiences. What is it for you when someone has held space for you? Have you had that in your life? What does it feel like? How is it that you interpret holding space or stepping into the space of friendship? We would love to hear that. Just giving us some formation, some structure around what is it we're actually talking about here. And of course, we are so thankful that you've joined us, so grateful that you've spent some time with us. This one was probably a little longer, but there was a lot of good stuff in here. So we hope y'all are encouraged, and hope y'all are enjoying this, and we hope you have a great week.
See you next week.